Hi, y'all. Let's talk about week 4 and what we are going to be doing this week. Um, we have this lecture video for you to view, so congratulations, you're already well on your way to doing your work for the week. You need to read the assigned comic book. It's called Understanding Rhetoric, and it's chapter 2 of a larger book. I just love this thing because it deals with some really complex concepts and rhetoric pretty straightforwardly. It's an easy read, and I'm going to hit some of the high points in this lecture, but you need to cover the whole thing. You want to address the discussion board, and you want to complete the quiz and the research notes assignments. So you don't have a super heavy duty load this week. I want you to continue with your research and your thinking about your rhetorical analysis essay. So, some housekeeping. I am working on grading and commenting on the work that you've turned in thus far. And in so doing, I've read through your topics and your discussion board last week, where you talked about your chosen resource that you're going to dedicate your analysis to. I think some of you guys haven't actually watched the video where I talk about the assignment or actually read the assignment sheet, because some of the chosen topics weren't, or chosen resources to do your analysis on, weren't actually in keeping with the assignment. They didn't match up with what you've been asked to do. So we're going to talk about the rhetorical analysis assignment again. I apologize if you already know that stuff, but I really don't want anybody getting a 0 because they just didn't bother to do the work. I want to make sure that the work is there for you to access and easy to understand. So I'm going to hit the high points of that as well. But I strongly suggest you look at the assignment sheet, because in that assignment sheet, I give you information that you should include, suggestions to get started, that kind of thing. As for your topics, most of them are really good. Some of them don't match up with the topic that you, or the resource doesn't match up with the topic that you chose for the semester. And I want to make sure you understand that everything you turn in needs to fall within the purview of the topic you chose for the semester. So if your topic that you chose at the beginning of the semester was global warming, then your rhetorical analysis needs to speak to and deal with a reading associated with that topic. All your research notes need to speak to that topic. All your proposal needs to address the topic that you chose at the start of the semester, and your argumentative essay needs to be associated with that topic of global warming or whatever it is that you chose. You can't hop around different topics. So make sure that you keep that in mind as well as we go forward. Also, access to videos. I want to just reiterate there was an issue with some of the videos that I posted via not YouTube, whatever that resource is, website that I use for folks who can't access YouTube. Please email me if you can't access the videos, because I have no way to know that unless you let me know. I have created a playlist on YouTube where you can see all of the videos there. So if by for some reason you can't access a video that's in one of the other softwares that I have used to post it and upload it, please let me know. I am happy to send you the file itself, although they do tend to be a little bit large. I am happy to, you know, post them wherever they need to go, wherever you need to be able to access them. If you have someplace where you would prefer to access them, let me know and I'll put them there. I want this to be easy in terms of accessing the information, because if you don't view the videos, you're going to have a harder time finishing the assignments. Um, and then we're also going to talk about briefly the rhetorical analysis assignment, and we're going to talk about the reading itself, which deals with strategic reading. So that's what's on the agenda for today. All right, so here's the quick and dirty discussion of the rhetorical analysis assignment. This is incredibly important. Please don't forget this. Please don't skip this. Choose a text that is related to your topic you chose for the entirety of your semester's work. If you chose global warming as your topic, then the resource that you're going to analyze for this assignment has to be associated with, in some way, global warming. It can be a video, it can be a flyer, it can be a protest sign, it can be anything. I really, truly cannot stress this enough. Any kind of a text, whether it's a video text, a song, a music video, a movie, whatever it is, that's a text, and you can use that as the basis for this assignment. So anything is fair game, but it has to relate to your topic. You can't choose some random piece of poetry or random song or random book or whatever. You can't do a rhetorical analysis of Harry Potter unless you chose that as your topic for the entirety of the semester. Which is why I told you way back at the beginning, be careful with what you choose, because this is your topic for the semester. Next, you want to make sure that you develop a clear thesis. I did a lecture and some handouts related to how to actually do a thesis statement that's good for a rhetorical analysis, because rhetorical analyses have a different type of thesis statement. Make sure that you go back and view those if you haven't already. Include a brief summary of the text. Be sure to give your reader a clear idea of what the text's purpose, audience, and context is. If you have chosen a text to discuss that is that's older, you might need to tell people, here's what was going on at the time that this was published. If you have chosen a text that is especially associated with a particular part of the larger conversation associated with your idea, then you probably want to give us a general idea of that. So, brief summary of the text, clear and concise discussion of the text's purpose, audience, and context. This should be no more than a paragraph or two. The majority of the rhetorical analysis must be you and your analysis of the text itself. Then you want to go on and support your thesis statement by pointing to specific textual examples in the work that you've chosen. If you are going to say this particular text succeeds and is persuasive because of the focus that the author gives to pathos and the importance of polar bears to our environment, then you're going to need to go and point to the places in the text where they do that work. In your analysis, discuss why they are or are not effective. So you're pointing to elements within the text and you're saying, here's why they work, here's why they don't work, whatever it is. If you know that for sure that the audience is particularly interested in the arguments about polar bears, then you would want to bring that up. Conclude by reflecting on the importance of the rhetorical strategies you have discussed throughout your essay. Don't restate your thesis verbatim, and do not introduce new ideas or arguments in the conclusion. So this is where you would tie things up into a little bow, a nice little package, and you talk about any rhetorical strategies that maybe they could have employed that they didn't. Maybe you have a guess as to why they didn't employ those strategies, but don't bring that up unless it's something you brought up already. So nothing new in the conclusion. That shouldn't be news to you. All right, so moving on to our comic book. It's called Issue 2, Strategic Reading. And anytime you're doing a reading for a class, you should ask yourself as you're getting started, why are we reading this now? Why does the professor feel like this is the place in the semester to have this reading introduced and discussed? Why is this here? Why are we doing this now? We're reading this now, and we're going to talk about this now because you're reading, hopefully, a lot of research. You're reading, looking for and determining what some good pieces of information are that you want to pull out and use later on in your arguments. You're looking for a good resource for your rhetorical analysis. You're doing a lot of picking and choosing of different pieces of information and texts, and being able to do this strategically is really important. All right, so if we look at page 72 through 75 of the reading, you'll see that there's a conversation between the two main characters who, in case you didn't realize it by their glasses and their nerdy look, they're supposed to be teachers. And one of the things that they talk about here is that one of the things that they say is, what's the difference in effect between these two terms that are used in a particular text? And they're discussing the different terms and the differences. And then they go on a little while later, what's the difference between a dear friend and a regular friend? And so what you see taking place here is some critical reading where they're talking about the differences and why that matters. Differences in the terms and the thinking and that sort of thing, and why it's important to the text, understanding the text itself. This is part of critical reading, and that then translates into what you want to say in your rhetorical analysis. Speaking of analysis, later on in the reading, they talk about what analysis is and why it matters and what you might need to do to perform a good analysis. Sometimes you're considering if the language is extreme. Is it hyperbole? Is it understatement? By the way, if you want extra credit, email me the definition of hyperbole. Sometimes you are looking for those things the author might have left out. Sometimes you're looking for unclear or ambiguous language. So you're not always looking at the things that are obvious. As a matter of fact, if you want to do a really good rhetorical analysis, you look for those things that are missing. You're looking for those things that maybe they didn't get real specific about. Maybe there's a reason they're not being specific about those things. Further, with analysis, you are taking what appears to be a unified, coherent object, and you're breaking it up into little pieces. It's easier to see what the larger object is, and it's easier to understand the larger object if you have it broken down into little pieces and can understand how they work together. Analysis is similar to explication, which you may have done in high school, where you explicated a poem or something. It's the process of uncovering or revealing ideas or beliefs that are buried in the text. So analysis and explication are very closely related. This is a process. This is a habit. This is something you have to do frequently, mindfully, and carefully if you're going to make it a part of your scholastic toolbox, I suppose we would say. All right, so we are done talking about the reading. Please read the whole thing. Don't limit yourself to those little pieces I talked about. There's a lot more here for you to consider and get into and make use of that's super duper helpful. Let's see, we've got the research notes assignment. Let me know if you're not 100% sure what you're supposed to be doing here. I'll be grading the notes this weekend, I hope. I have seen some really great research notes. I have seen some really good work. So some of you guys are really knocking it out of the park. This right here will be how I take attendance. This is the discussion board. So by now you've had a few weeks to work with your resources, your topic, and do some critical thinking yourself about your topic. How has your thinking changed? Was there a text or resource you found that was especially important to your thinking about and understanding of the topic? This will be how I take attendance, and it also requires you to respond to at least 2 other writers. Please submit your initial response to the prompt by Wednesday night as usual, and your 2 responses are due by Sunday at midnight. Here's the link to the lecture notes and to the reading. The quiz isn't available yet, but it will be by the time you watch this video. Please email me with any questions you've got, and I do hope that you have a wonderful week.